actually, but
Okay.
Mark actually got his pro account, I guess. I almost did, but then it said, oh, you can have like a extend a meeting without doing that. So I'm doing that for the time being. And
Cool.
hopefully that works out. And
Cool.
yeah, I am. Yeah, we're learning the benefits of Zoom. So
it's not bad. There's I mean, we've gotten by with it for a long time. We were using Skype at one point, and that was just awful. But somebody who does one of the Roddenberry shows with us said he was looking into, I think it's called River FM or something like that, that does really high quality audio that you can control the individual streams, and it doesn't have the compression problems that Zoom does. So we're going to look into it. I don't know if it'll do everything we want to do, but apparently just for audio recording, the quality is great. So,
yeah, I was just last night doing a three-way Skype like audio editing, and it was just it's ridiculous.
yeah. It's insane. Yeah. Skype is no bueno.
So
I haven't started a podcast yet, so I don't have to worry about it. I'll be the last one. I'll just be this 5 billionth person to start a podcast.
Yeah. No time like being the 5 billionth or 5 billionth and first. Yeah,
indeed.
So I guess we'll go on and get into it and do an intro. So Mark, I did tell you get the year, right?
Yeah, I tried to channel Luke with this.
Okay, let's hear it.
In the year 1987, NASA's budget was cut so drastically that they accidentally invented time travel.
Back to 1979.
Yeah, but in 1987 was when the movie take place.
Hey, wait, you don't sound like Luke. Who are you?
I don't know. Who am I?
You know who you are.
I hit my head and now I'm not British anymore.
Anyway,
I'm Mark Malek. Hi, I'm your pinch hitter.
Yeah, I'm Matt. This is the Sci-Fi Sanctuary. This is my bad. I schedule these things on like January 10th. So I said I'm January 10th, which it is for you guys, but it's January 11th here, and he has a date, but he may be calling in, or he'll be doing the summary and stuff. You'll be hearing from Luke. The plus side to this is that I'm actually Matthew. We've got Mark. Luke is Luke, and today's guest is our first returning guest, who I didn't play in punk bands with, although our pinch hitter I did play in punk bands with.
Hey, you still can.
Yeah. He talks up all the Star Trek on Mission Log, has an affinity for all the fun spy stuff in the 60s and 70s retro futurism. So hello, John Champion.
Hey, good to see you. And thank you for that intro. Yes, I think you pretty much nailed me to a T. That's pretty much what I'll be known for forever and ever.
That's why you're here for today's movie, which is Buck Rogers in the 25th Century. The pilot was shown theatrically. It counts as a movie. And since we have Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John here, anything we say about this is now the gospel truth. But I'm going to throw this first to Mark, actually, because Mark got 23 hours notice on this, did his homework, made some notes, all of that stuff. And I think this was completely new to you.
Yes. The only experience I had with any Buck Rogers, anything, was watching a bunch of the old serials in college and not really paying a whole lot of attention. I don't remember very much about it.
Did I make you watch those?
Very new. Probably.
Okay.
Was college was full disclosure, college was a long time ago.
Yeah, for me, like this was kind of the ground zero of my sci-fi. I think I was like into this as a toddler, right?
Wow.
Like my parents wanted to watch MASH. MASH is a great show, but I wanted Buck Rogers or the Muppet Show. I did see some MASH too, though, so I didn't always get my way.
See, it's weird because you're younger than I am, and I don't remember this show being on, and I think it's because there were only 37 episodes, which is not enough for syndication. So I don't even, I don't feel like I ever really had the opportunity to see it.
I think I might have been like really young, like one, because I was born in 79. But yeah, later on, I kind of remembered it, and somehow I conflated it with Logan's Run. Because
interesting, yeah.
It looks like it.
But as a kid, I was like, but weren't there spaceships? And why does this robot look so crap? And
I was really going to ask both of you, do you think that this future could eventually become the Logan's Run future?
Oh, you know what? That's not a bad bit of retconning. Logan's Run is 30th century, and at that point, they've allowed the computers to run their entire city, and as we see in Buck Rogers, they're ready to do that. They're just like, here, tell us what to do. So I think you're onto something there. Yeah.
See, I did kind of. Sorry, go ahead, Matt.
I was just saying they're willing to sentence people to death with their computers already.
Yeah.
That was it. It felt honestly refreshingly optimistic to be like, this is a future where the singularity has happened and we're fine with it. We're just like, sure, until it got to that point. Also, the fact that one of the robots just seemed to only exist to say nice things about Buck Rogers.
Isn't that nice? Yeah, some programmer somewhere was like, you know what, if we're ever in a situation that we have a 500-year-old thought out astronaut, let's have a program in here that'll be nice. Why not? Because we seem to be missing a nice computer in all of this.
Yeah, I think in episode 3 it probably tries to sell him WinRAR.
Yeah,
I think that's where Buster Crabbe shows up, the original Buck Rogers. Episode 3.
He's because I don't know if you guys watched you watched the theatrical version, not the part 1 and 2 Awakening.
Actually, I think Mark got the part 1 and 2 because, again, of the 23 hours notice, and it's on NBC.com. I watched the theatrical.
Okay.
I went back and looked at, just sort of peeked at what I knew were supposed to be the differences, which it seemed mainly the intro sequence, which is absurd, really, compared to after watching it. It's ridiculous. And also, I think that the Tiger Man fight is just about 2 seconds longer than the theatrical version.
Yeah,
because he doesn't kick him in the crotch.
That is true. Yeah, you leave out that the intro is different. Yeah, we see that whole the opening credits, and there's some other minor differences. I think there's some stuff of Ardala that we don't get in the TV version that we do get in theatrical. And the biggest thing is the change of not Killer Kane, but Joseph Wiseman, Dr. No, as Draco, is the holographic image that we see in the theatrical version. We don't get that. We have a totally different actor playing Draco in the TV series version. So I don't know what happened there. I don't know why Joseph Weissman, they just figured like, okay, we're not going to use him. But I mean, that's a pretty major star, and he's in there for all of about 10 seconds, but you know, why not?
Rolling back to the how'd you get into it frame of thought, John, where did you enter Buck's world?
With the original airing, yeah. So it's funny, like you, yes, I remember other shows at the time like MASH. You know, my parents were big fans of MASH, rightfully so. It's one of the best shows ever made. Definitely, I was following things like The Muppet Show, but that period of, you know, 1977, 78, 79, Star Wars, Battlestar Galactica, Buck Rogers, they sort of all ran together for me, because this was this golden age of sci-fi on the big screen and on the TV screen. And that's not even to discount the other things that were coming out. You know, Moonraker was taking advantage of the Star Wars kind of zeitgeist. Everybody wanted to do a huge, big budget sci-fi show or a sci-fi movie. So Buck Rogers, like, that showed up for me when I was really bummed that Battlestar Galactica was going off the air, but then really happy that Buck Rogers came along and just had this much kind of lighter, funnier, more kind of self-aware show than Galactica. I mean, don't get me wrong, Galactica is great, but you are telling this very heavy story from week to week, even though the 1978 version is far lighter than the 2004 version. But Buck Rogers seemed to hit all the right notes for when it came out, because you had this, you know, fun, almost, you know, not as campy as Batman necessarily, but kind of cut from the same cloth. with the same idea. We can just do something kind of light and entertaining with a hero that we can just all sort of get behind, So you had that. You had, which I'm sure we'll talk about, great set design and special effects, particularly for a TV budget. They're really just stretching every dollar that they've got there. And amazing guest stars. I realized we were just talking about the pilot movie, and I wanted to mention Joseph Weisman there. But like, you get further into the series, and kind of alluded to Buster Crabbe showing up in the next episode. Well, the guest star in the next episode is Jack Palance. I mean, just right off the bat, you have these great appearances. So, yeah, I loved this show as a kid, and then when it came back for its second season, again, super excited about it, so happy, and just as disappointed as I was with Galactica 1980, because they just threw out everything that made those shows good in the first place and tried to just squeeze whatever last vestige of what made it work, and they missed, just a huge miss on both counts. So I'm always happy to talk about Bach, man. I'm glad you wanted to do this. What a great excuse to bust out that Blu-ray,
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, this actually was on the coat heels of Battlestar. Like, both were Glenn Larson producing, and from what I understand, Battlestar was successful, but just cost too much money to produce. And this was kind of the their quick fix, so to speak.
Yeah, right. And it's too bad because, the TV landscape is so different now than it was then. And Galactica would be a runaway hit today with the numbers that they had then. Same thing for Buck Rogers. And not only would they be runaway hits, they would get 5 times the budget that they had then as well. I mean, proportionally, 5 times the budget. But the expectations back then, ABC on a Sunday night, they were, particularly with Galactica, trying to do theatrical quality stories in a 1-hour format week to week. It just wasn't sustainable. And it's too bad because they had everything going for them. But, you can tell where they really started to cut corners. And then with Buck Rogers, I think they really had the right idea, which is, we need special effects, but we don't need to rely so much on that. What we need is the leading man. We need to put him in these like fun missions each week, the almost like a James Bond in space kind of thing. And you can rely on a lot of like some location shooting that they did, but also just sort of like grounded sets. You've got your New Chicago sets, and then inevitably they go to like the cave set. So it's like a very Star Trek thing. It's like, we just need to go back and redress that cave set, and that'll be our bad guy's lair this week.
Mark, I was just curious, since you're pretty new to the whole Buck scene, what was your kiddie sci-fi?
Well, Lost in Space. Twilight Zone, if that counts as sci-fi. I think it probably does.
I think we can count that.
Star Trek, the original series. Knight Rider, if that counts as sci-fi, which it is.
Yeah.
It's sci-fi. The Greatest American Hero, a little bit.
Great theme song.
Yeah. There were a couple of really weird things in that show that were beyond I don't know. There was some episode where everyone ended up in a weird other dimension, and it was just inside of a closet or something, and it was just a black space, and everyone was different psychedelic colors, and that just really imprinted hard on me as a kid, I guess. Was,
yeah, I'm gonna have to search that out.
It was weird. So
just curious,
yeah,
I know you and I are often on the same sci-fi trip, so
yeah, but I had a sort of a sheltered childhood. My parents were a little bit older, not really into entertainment so much. The first sci-fi movie I saw in the movie theater was Flight of the Navigator, which was, I think, 86. So I was already almost 10, which is weird. And I did not see and I don't remember finding out that Darth Vader was Luke's father. I do not remember
until this moment.
Just
actually,
now.
you just read it before you came on the air. Like,
yeah, what? It was in the Buck Rogers IMDb page for some reason. But yeah, I had a weird, like, out of order. My first experience with Star Wars was a record that was like a storybook record, which
Oh,
had all the
wow.
different voices. I don't know if you've heard that one or not, but it is
No.
very strange. Darth Vader sounds like a generic, like, He-Man villain. Really
That's
strange.
funny.
Let's get a bit into the story of Buck Rogers, and here we roll with that, which I'll edit in later. So,
All right.
all right.
Very good.
Yeah, I want to get so. I guess I want to ask Mark first because you watched the TV version with sort of the normal Buck Rogers intro, absolutely fantastic, and then you found the theatrical intro.
Yeah,
Also fantastic.
I liked the TV intro much better. Like the sort of concentric circles. I don't know, but yeah, Aaron Gray, awesome. But I prefer angry Aaron Gray to trying to be sexy Aaron Gray. It just feels
It's just so weirdly
know
like
if that's-
Studio 54 softcore or something.
yeah, it was very strange. There's a lot of anything that tried to be kind of sexy about this was just kind of weird. But that made it fun though. I thought
it feels a little misplaced. I mean, those opening credits, like, don't get me wrong, the theatrical version, I think it's so perfect for its time, and it's so perfect that we have that as an alternate, right?
Yeah.
Now, that said, what we got on TV, way better, just way more stylish, way more fun. And that is one of those opening credit sequences for a show that I never, ever skip, no matter what. And there's only a handful of shows that I never skip the opening credits for. That's one. I think Space 1999 is the other. Yeah. But so many others I just like. Yeah, I don't care if there's a skip intro button. I'm hitting that thing. And in the first season, we get William Conrad doing the opening narration. You know, the year is 1987, and NASA, and that to me is like the definitive. I heard that, and as soon as you go to season 2 and it's a different voice, I'm like, no, I'm out. It feels wrong, you know.
Yeah, I've never actually gotten to my season 2 DVDs, though I do have them. The one thing with the theatrical I want to throw out, though, is that what Buck was doing for 500 years in his dream space?
Hey, I can't say I wouldn't be there, you know. 500 years is a long time. The mind tends to wander.
I'm a little embarrassed here. We'll get to the actors, but I guess I've always read it, so I've never known if it's a nice down south Gil Gerard or a softer Gil Gerard.
Gil.
That was Gil.
Yeah.
Okay, Gil Gerard. Okay, we can do it like we do it down south.
Yeah. Gil Gerard.
No.
I've been sometimes, what was it? Russian roulette. I've been called out for saying softening my vowels.
Roulette?
It's roulette.
That's wild.
Yeah,
It
but
is
I missed it is roulette. But
I love that Gil Gerard is immediately out of the gate on drugs. He's just his first immediate is just like, what? He's basically completely out of it for the first 25 minutes, which is really
maybe
fun.
my favorite Buck.
Yeah.
And
you know, I think that was a pretty smart thing, is just to immediately set that tone. You just immediately, you're laughing with him. You get it. You're along for this fun ride instead of it taking it so super seriously. I mean, it's a pretty theatrically, it's a pretty arresting thing to see this guy frozen and all the lights out and all. That's a pretty disturbing idea. But then just to sort of like take the air out of it, lighten it up, have him being goofy, that's one of those things that immediately gets me behind this version of Buck. You know, that you just know right away, okay, we're not going to take this super seriously.
Well, it's Flash Gordon, and we get to make the Buster Crabbe comparison with both, right?
Yeah.
You know, serial Flash Gordon's very charming, where a movie, I do love the movie Flash Gordon, but we basically just put a piece of cardboard up as Flash there, where Gil pretty much stands up perfectly well to Buster. You know, he doesn't have his companion like he does in the serial, but yeah, when I was a toddler, this Gil here was like my standard for being a man when I was 2 years old, I guess. and probably Aaron Gray for the women.
Yeah, no, but this is this perfect, like late 70s. In the commentary on the Blu-ray, they were talking about how like Burt Reynolds was sort of the model that the writers and producers were thinking of. Here you have this, this manly man. He takes off the shirt. He's got the hairy chest. He's built. Gil Gerard used to be a football player, from what I understand, and but he just exudes charm. And the way that like a Burt Reynolds does in Cannonball Run or in Smokey and the Bandit, it's the same kind of ride. It's like you're pulling for the guy. He's funny, he's charming, but he's sexy, and you get the chemistry on screen. So it sort of surprised me that Gil Gerard didn't become a bigger star than he did. And unfortunately, I think he was hobbled by the failures of Buck Rogers, certainly in some of the episodes of season 1, but definitely in the failures of season 2. And I know that he's been very outspoken about that, that he was at loggerheads with the producers trying to steer the show in better directions, and it just didn't work out. But that casting is ideal. And, they thought they were going to lose Erin Gray right at the beginning. She had done the pilot, and then she didn't want to come back for the series. So there was an actress that they hired as like the person who had potentially become that Wilma Deering type character. So, yeah. But I thank goodness they ended up with who they did.
Yeah, I'm thinking what else Gil has done. I know he did. What was it? Star Trek Continues that he showed up in, or was it the New Voyages?
I think he did New Voyages, and then Aaron did. Continues.
Silver Spoons.
Yeah, and she was in Silver Spoons. Heck yeah,
that's where I knew her from.
Yeah,
looks like Gil Gerard was in Airport 77.
Oh, before.
Oh yeah.
So,
right.
He was in Transformers: Robots in Disguise. Too bad Luke isn't here for that one.
That's not the movie, is it? That's this TV show.
Yeah, it's one of the 300 Transformers TV series.
Right. Of course, I would argue the biggest star here is. Does anyone want to finish that sentence?
Mel Blanc.
Yes.
It took me a while to figure that out. It took me probably half of the runtime to be like, wait, what? Wait, that's Mel Blanc. It can't be anybody else.
Well, Twiki doesn't really. I mean, at first it's not Douglas Rain. It's sort of a HAL 9000 interpreter during impressionist doing Dr. Theopolis, and Twiki just it's not till much later
that was weird. Twiki is the one reference from this show that I've seen elsewhere, and it was like, oh, I get it. That was the one thing that I'd already seen, and is the weirdest thing. It is to me so unusual to have this sort of slapstick robot that mostly is just making a processing sound, I guess, but also carrying around the smartest AI. It was so weird. It was almost like Quato. It was such a bizarre thing, but it was also really cool. I don't know. It's cool to see people doing weird. It's weirder than any of the robot choices in like Star Wars.
Yeah. I was talking to Luke a few days ago, just to throw in a few of his views. I was like, I don't see how when I was a kid that wasn't like super confusing. It's like, no, when you're a kid, that's when it's not confusing. That's when it's
from the trivia I read, apparently the reason he speaks English is because he learns. The reason he sort of talks like in Mel Blanc-isms is apparently he learns 20th century slang from Buck Rogers. So he's just sort of parroting it, which is also weird. I don't know. That was really strange. I was almost like, is this problematic? I'm not even really sure.
And sorry, just shout out. We're just assuming people know Mel Blanc, but that's every Looney Tune. If the name is not firing a synapse in the listener's brain.
He was Duck Dodgers. That's how you know.
Right.
Oh, you got the lead role there. That's right. Of course, this theatrical or two-part pilot has some very special guest stars. I guess we'll start with it's Freddie Silva, because this is his only time as Kane, I believe.
Oh, weird. He gave a weird performance, I thought.
Henry Silva. Yeah, he comes back. I want to say that there is one, the Return of Ardala at the end of season 1. I thought he was back for that one. I'm not sure. Yeah, he's. I really like Henry Silva as an actor. I think he was. I don't think he was used to his best abilities here.
Yeah,
He's,
Kane,
yeah.
Kane
He
was
had
sort
good
of the main
presence.
bad guy in the serial. Like Kane was the mustache twirler in the
Yeah,
30s version,
he's
so
the
he's kind of
mastermind.
sidelined here.
Yeah.
And of course, he's being sidelined by Pamela Hensley, which is also notable. Who
Fantastic.
Yeah.
is
She's
good to watch here.
fantastic.
That was, I have to say, like, so when I was a kid watching Buck Rogers the first time around, because Erin Gray is the co-star of the show, like all eyes are on her, and she and Buck are this great team, and there's a lot of focus, and rightfully so. She is charming. She is like girl next door, but cooler and sexier, but approachable. Like she has all the qualities that you want in this character, right? And I didn't think much of Ardala other than just, okay, she's the bad guy that we see once, and then again late at the end of the season. Rewatching the movie and really paying attention to it, Pamela Hensley owns every scene she is in. I mean, that is such power coming from that actress and such presence. I so admire actors who can do that, who can just take what is, kind of a flimsy role. It's like, oh, okay, you're attractive, you're the princess, you're the bad guy, but really, 90% of these scenes are about Buck. For somebody to just come in and just sort of like be completely unfiltered, throw it all at the screen.
Literally.
Yeah. But I mean, but that takes a lot of strength. It takes a lot of energy and presence as an actor, and she brings it absolutely.
Yeah, just the confidence, no matter what the outfit is.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Or no outfit.
Yeah.
Any number.
Which was surprising in a sci-fi mostly geared towards kids.
She was just about to have Tiger Man executed just for like being thrown in her bed while he was unconscious.
Yeah.
She's hardcore.
Yeah.
Tiger Man. Pretty awesome.
Of course, one of the biggest draws of this is the design, which I'm going to come down on the table that I do prefer this design to the Battlestar design. I guess I like the primary colors. I noticed they have the complete opposite of like the Nazi armband with like the rainbow armband.
Got a rainbow. Yeah.
Everyone loves that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are good details too that show up really nicely in the Blu-ray. They're because they make a lot of good use out of like just vacuum plastic. They just create these patterns out of vacuum plastic tiles, throw them all up in an empty soundstage, throw some light on them. Very inexpensive way to make a set, but they really use that to their advantage. And you go in and look at it on Blu-ray and just like, wow, the details are awesome. They're lit well. The paint scheme it's fun. It looks great, but it also has this very like this very sort of theatrical feel. And I don't mean theatrical like big budget movie. I mean theatrical like you're watching a stage play almost. So they make good use out of empty space. They make good use out of like one of my favorite things is always spotting that two-dimensional cutout of the Star Cruiser that always pops up when you want to show more than one in the hangar. They had that full-size prop that the actors are near, but you look in the back and there's always just a 2D cutout painted, which when you were watching this on a 19-inch TV in 1979, you would have never noticed that was just a cutout. But on Blu-ray, it shows, you can tell, and I love it even more. I love it that's the kind of production shortcut that still adds depth and interest to these sets.
Yeah, it really reminds me of like the first time I saw The Wizard of Oz in a theater. Was that
Mm,
my infatuation with it just changed from I love being in this world to, oh, someone got to make this and play in it, and it's just so fun to
yeah.
I don't know. That's the feeling I had watching this yesterday, was like somebody had a lot of fun making this. The explosions, just fire occasionally they composite
Right.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah, great
Yeah, I often
stuff.
say on this podcast, the special effects that really get me usually have heart. I mean, you can have the
Hmm.
like the DC movies. I do actually like a fair amount of them. I got Shazam hanging out right here, but the climax is often like fighting the big CGI brown gray blob. Where
Yeah.
one of my favorite effects movies ever is the 1960 Time Machine, where technically the effects
Oh,
are
Oh,
yeah,
terrible, but they're
that
great.
wonderful.
sequence. Oh, that
Wonderful.
that that time
Yeah.
travel sequence is still like for me top 10 of
Yeah.
anything. That's
Yeah.
just
Like the destruction of London, technically it's not good effects, but just has heart in it, and I like it.
Hmm.
well, they put so much work like it feels like they put just a year of work into it.
Yeah.
I know that's probably not the case, but
I,
yeah.
I would say this is prime time for the matte paintings. Even when I had basically like Buck Rogers had somehow gotten out of my mind those images of the it's not the Forbidden City, is no that was
The
Kansas City.
mutant zone or something, that
That's
whole
New
thing was
Chicago. That
really
was cool.
cool.
No, I'm
New
thinking of
Chicago.
the new Chicago. Yeah, I don't remember what it's called in the serial, but yeah, that those images just always, I mean, stick in my mind. That's maybe one of the first things I think of when someone says the word sci-fi. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of bummed when I read apparently that goes away in the series, so that's the only time you see it.
yeah, they're on a spaceship in the second season. That's part of the
Uh,
disappointment.
The matte paintings for Buck Rogers, I know that a good number of them were done by Dan Curry, who did a lot of work on Star Trek. I mean, that's what he's best known for. But for the pilot, Sid Dutton, who studied under Albert Whitlock, and you're talking about the person who's done some of the most famous matte paintings in cinema history. And you look at any of Hitchcock's films; those were Whitlock paintings, and that DNA is definitely in the work here that Sid Dutton did for the pilot, for the movie.
It definitely sticks out as well. Um,
Yeah.
one other I want to go for is design. Not design, sound design, excuse me, because yeah, this movie kept making me want to go run off and play with my mini Moog some.
It was really cool seeing something that was almost like a Star Wars like X-wing battle, but it had like jazz.
Yeah.
Right.
good-
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
I know getting into the series probably for the same reason. My favorite episode of the actual series is the Space Rockers one, which just
Hell yeah, it is.
Yeah. Dropped it.
Space Rockers, like there's a band in space.
Yeah.
I haven't seen this, so
and they
tell
just
me.
keep playing the same like jazz fusion thing, but it's real funky. It's real good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm gonna at least binge the first season, and then I'll look.
You
at
can
it.
quit after that, most likely.
I'll just look at it.
Well,
Yeah.
and the Space Rockers, so the music for that is Johnny Harris, who he did some of the other incidental music for Buck Rogers as well. But he was well known as an electronic artist and a soundtrack composer and artist for a lot of movies and TV shows. Just read the other day that he won Eurovision in 1969 with Lulu, so he's got quite the pedigree. But yeah, Space Rockers, just it's such like it's one of those things where it's such a goofy concept, but then you just sort of go with it because the show decides to go with it, and how could you not?
And Mark and our dear listeners, you'll find great things like the Space Olympics, Gary Coleman, as you get into that first season.
Sure.
What?
Yeah.
We mentioned the guest stars. I was like, oh, we got to mention Gary Coleman.
Well, yeah, and Miss Galaxy, played by the late Dorothy Stratton, and you've got, let's see, Jamie Lee Curtis in there, Frank Gorshin. I mean, the guest stars, the hits just keep coming. So
What year's Halloween? Is that a pre-Halloween Jamie Lee Curtis?
yeah,
I think that was 79. I don't think that was pre-Halloween.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll find out.
Do you guys have any? Is there any special bit of the design that really does just stick in your head for this one. Like I said, for me, those matte paintings are just like burned into my subconscious. So
everything draconian. Just it's basically like Space Italy or something.
Spaceball 1.
Yeah, it is Spaceball 1. It's Spaceball 1, but the inside of it is basically like a red like Danger Diabolique pleasure palace.
Yeah, there you go.
Actually, just we just finished up the most recent Discovery, and I was kind of like the draconian ship and the Mirror Universe Discovery seem to have a fair amount of things in common. Mark, I don't know if you've been on that scene or not.
I'm behind. But... I need to watch all of the new Trek, and I'm behind.
Okay.
Please don't at me, listeners. I'm sorry. There's too much. There's too much TV.
Yes.
Halloween's 1978.
Oh, okay. So
oh, really? Oh, so she had just done it. Wow.
It might have been her first movie. I'm not sure.
Well, that's what I kind of assumed.
Right.
I knew that was her breakout. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
And John, you got one piece of design that you particularly want to point out?
All of it is so good. And what I love is you can kind of point to the store-bought things as well. So it's a different kind of production. Like this is all Universal Studios. Not only is it all Universal Studios, but it's coming out of this sort of factory of production. You go back to shows like $6 Million Man, Bionic Woman, then Galactica, and Universal is just cranking these things out. They're using the stuff that's in their warehouse, and they're using a lot of ways to cut corners. So what I love is you look at a room or a scene and go like, oh, okay, that was a lamp that clearly they just bought at a store and threw it in here. There's a computer console we've seen in 5 other Universal Studios shows. But what I love is what I pointed out before, actually, which is the when they'll take a pattern and they'll do like a fiberglass or vacuum form tile and just build a room out of that. It's so dead simple, and yet it kind of says everything you need to in the scene. There are some good shots of Buck kind of on his own when the Earth Directorate doesn't know what to make of him. They don't know if he's a spy. They don't, they don't buy his story yet. And the isolation that he has is magnified by these like just sterile white rooms, concrete floor. It's simple and it totally sells the point of the scene. So I love to think of this, the movie and the series is really making the most out of their creativity when you don't have the luxury of like what Star Trek, the later Treks like Next Gen and beyond, what they had, which is, oh, okay, well, we've got this considerably higher budget because we have this syndication model, or now we have the streaming model where we have these huge budgets. We can afford to manufacture literally anything we want and create these worlds from the ground up. You don't have that in Buck Rogers, but they're making the most out of what they do have.
Yeah, I do feel like a lot of those really sparse, like white sets or something that no one even tries to make anymore. So, I mean, some people might see it as dated, but I think it just looks alien, which is important because it is 500 years in the future. So, I do think some kind of like at least a little bit of just discomfort makes it just
color
go that much
gels
farther
on those walls, and you got something.
Yeah, right.
So I realized I'm going to kick myself if I don't say psychedelic space tube before we get out of design.
Space tube.
I want to live in the psychedelic space tube at that velocity. I don't.
Right.
I think Battlestars were white. They weren't so colorful, if I remember.
Yeah, it's funny that with Galactica, there's so much from Buck Rogers that they borrowed from Galactica, sound effects and visual effects, and then that whole idea, just that sort of design language. Okay, we have a tube, it's going to light, we'll play this sound effect, and that then imparts that you're being shot out of this launch. I mean, that was something that to me was very definitively Galactica because we had not seen anything like that on TV until that came along. for them to just turn around and reuse that same idea for Buck Rogers the very next year, a little bit weird, but also kind of perfect because it's an effect that I love.
We brought it up a little bit when we started, but you know, this is that weird period of time when it's like it's a utopia. We watched the Logan's Run documentary, like this is a utopian, and now we're all like, no, that's a dystopia.
No,
And
that's how it always is. The utopia, the dystopia is successful in making everyone believe it's a utopia. I think we've seen that.
But yeah, like as a kid, it's like, oh, it's the fantastic future, right? And now I'm watching, like, this isn't a particularly wonderful place to live, is it?
But it's a great political statement, you know, because it's like Starship Troopers, which you recently went over, is like it's almost a perfect implementation of that, because everyone is smiling and not blinking and not flinching, and it's horrifying at the same time, because that's how societies work. You generally don't have people that are running around just going, no, this is terrible.
Yeah, but I mean, it's hard for us, even in the 21st century, not to be completely down with Buck wanting to turn off his guidance computer and just take a role. But in 50 years, those of us that are like, yeah, I'd love to like get into a car and get the stick shift going. That's going to be pretty weird and archaic, like before too long, most likely.
Right. Well, I felt like I didn't feel like that was a utopia, and it felt like a little refreshing that it was like maybe a lowercase u utopia, if that makes any sense.
I go with that lowercase u.
Yeah, it didn't feel like the people in charge were under the impression that they lived in a perfect society, and I think that is kind of a lot of sci-fi that's set in the future is maybe a little bit technophobic. You have people immediately showing up screaming at you that you live in a perfect society, and if you mess with it, you're going down. And it felt maybe a little bit more humble.
Dancing
that may change. Yeah.
I feel like that became one of the themes, though, throughout the series, is that the people in New Chicago are aware still that they've got a long way to go. Like, they have incredible technologies, but they live on this planet Earth that's still feeling the effects of World War III. Obviously lost just tons of people, and can't use a good portion of the land, so they're still fighting that. So it's a little bit of it's not quite like Star Trek, where there's a sort of love-hate relationship with technology. I mean, Buck Rogers, they embrace the technology, but then it's like it's almost like they're glad whenever Buck shows them, like, well, here's how we did it in the 20th century. And it's, they're at least a little more open to the idea of what he brings to the table. And yeah, a lot of that was very on the nose, but again, that's just sort of the type of show we're dealing with.
Yeah, I can't help thinking of Brave New World, give the people in New Chicago some soma, and we're there, which then makes me think, like, well, maybe they got the soma, but then I'm thinking, do we have like the Savage living in old Chicago, quoting Shakespeare and stuff? There could be. I don't know. I don't think the show really got into that particular facet of what was actually going on with the mutants and so forth.
I mean, it doesn't take a whole lot to think about when you're watching the Jetsons. Who's on the ground? Like, I definitely thought about that a little bit. Who's on the ground? What's on the ground? Never. It's so bad that they won't even show you. It's just, it's almost, it's honestly more, it's nicer to see just savages running around with sticks than to just not know, because not knowing is like, oh, is it just a jail?
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's what I like about Buck's insistence on exploring old Chicago, because to the viewer it's like, no, that's insane, and it just seems like a TV trope, like, oh, he's just like being contrary to move the plot forward. But then you're like, well, if that was me and I was going through my old city like that, I'd probably be pretty obstinate about it as well.
I as Matt, you probably saw in my notes, I basically thought he should have taken the draconian leadership as soon as it was offered to him.
That's what
Flash Gordon was. If he was really an 80s guy, he probably would have.
Yeah.
Just, they didn't know what the 80s were yet. But yeah.
And that's sort of like the Ghostbusters rule. Like, if anybody asks if you are a god, you say yes. Like, for Bach, like, if they're going to give you this title, you just say yes. Just
fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
I mean, it
But
is
I
an
mean,
enticing offer.
it is. But I mean, that is one of the biggest missed opportunities, and there are many. But one of the biggest missed opportunities of Buck Rogers as a series, the way it was done here, is that you don't get a really clear picture of what's happening on the outside. We kind of leave it. We have Buck's experience in old Chicago, and that's a good sequence. But we don't have a whole lot of that. In fact, I don't think we really have any of it after the fact when we get later into the series. And we don't really spend any time, with maybe one or two exceptions, figuring out Buck's state of mind after losing everything in his entire world that is now 500 years dead. You know, there was one episode that I'll call out called "A Dream of Jennifer," and they really start to get into that, where he sees somebody who reminds him of his old girlfriend, but it's revealed to be basically like a plant. He's being manipulated by somebody else. But you actually start to get into this, like, whoa, what are the repercussions of somebody having to find his way in this completely foreign environment, even though the people around him are basically good and looking out for his best interests? There's still this emotional price to pay for everything that's happened.
Yeah, I was gonna say that one of the big differences between the 30s serial and this is he has his sidekick he's got Buddy in the 30s
Right.
serial who is
Yeah.
from his time, and he's got like that one little connection.
Yeah.
I guess that role is basically the Tweaky Dr. Theopolis combination in this one, but that is something that's not from his time, so he's more disconnected here. And like if the older serial had like started making episodes, they couldn't do The Dream of Jennifer because of that. And
Yeah.
that's definitely one of the ones that sticks out in my mind, as well as being one of the series one standouts at least. So
Yeah.
is it good for him to have that sidekick, or do we gain from total isolation?
I think having a sidekick that is a tiny robot that's carrying a brilliant AI scientist, it's pretty. It's like having a smartphone. I don't know. It's not that. He's not that. It's like Alexa. I guarantee you when they
Android.
reboot it, whatever they reboot it, it's going to be like he has an Alexa, and it's just going to be he's carrying a puck around.
Right.
I'm sure. But
I hope he has one of those clear iPhones. I watched the Saved by the Bell reboot because I'm weird, and of course they got to give Zach Morris the future phone, right? I watched that in high school, so now he's got.
Wait. So wait, the Saved by the Bell reboot is set in the future?
No, it's set now, but Zach Morris always has a future phone. He had a phone in the early 90s, right? So
okay.
in the new one, he has
really
this weird, totally clear phone. It's pretty trippy. It's like the one sci-fi element of that show, probably.
Oh, this self-awareness is good.
Yeah.
Well, it is. Well, now it's 2021, for better or for worse. I've heard predictions that 2021 and 2022 will all be the same year. I don't know what that means, but
what?
From the weirdos and psychics.
Okay.
Sorry, it's just a bizarre statement. Anyway, I was like,
I mean, it could be completely true. I don't know. Years might be outlawed by next month. Who knows? It might be twice as long. We don't even know.
That's what they did in the 18th century in England, where they're like, okay, we're moving a few years over.
We're going to metric time. Every month is 10. Every month is 100 days, and they're 10 months.
The French Revolution did try that, and it really didn't take.
Love this plan. Let's try it again.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, I was trying to see how this one holds up in 2021. Again, it's hard for me to say. Like I said, this is in my sci-fi DNA. This I think it was my boarding point for sci-fi, so it's hard to disparage it at all. I watch it, I'm like, this is great, but
the weird thing for me is this is the one thing that held up absolutely almost incredibly well is the dance scene where they're all like dancing. Like that music sounded like it sounded like now, and I don't know if his little like play some rock and roll and it was like weird, like sort of groovy dance music, and he sort of looked like an idiot. I assume that was completely supposed to be funny because that was completely funny.
Yeah.
I don't know. It worked for me. I was like, I had to rewind it. Like I can't believe this works so well.
I think that's a scene where I just had to go get the mini moog out too.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I mean, it sounded like at one point it sounded like music from 1986, which is like, that's 7 years.
Yeah.
Pretty good about that. Yeah.
Pretty good.
Man, that's such a hard question because I'm like you. I mean, I look at this and I just go, this is my childhood, and I loved it then for what I think are good reasons. Like it's fun, it's light, the cast has good energy. It is designed and produced very well for its time, but its time was 40 years ago. So how do you get somebody who's coming at this new to appreciate and understand that? It's like if somebody in the 70s for the first time after they've seen Star Wars is told, go watch Metropolis. Now, Metropolis is a great movie, but if you're just saying, here, now go watch this, and you're a kid who has just seen Star Wars, you're like, I don't get it. It all looks fake. It all looks weird. Why are they why do their costumes look like that? What's the deal with the giant clock? I don't understand, So it would be very hard for me to sort of sell this show to somebody who isn't already in a mindset of saying, I love vintage TV. I love, products of the late 70s. They're already sort of predisposed to enjoy it. But that said, like, you can take my Buck Rogers Blu-rays out of my cold dead hands.
I was thinking. Go ahead, Mark.
Oh, sorry. Speaking personally, I went into it without much interest in watching it, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. So, I also went in with like, I am going to take this historical perspective with it. So I can't really tell you how I would feel if someone just out of nowhere, just maybe if I was a little younger. See, now I'm just going with too many hypotheticals. I think it holds up. I think it holds up very well for anyone who is old enough to remember this era at all.
And John, just to go a bit back in your wheelhouse, and sorry, Mark, you haven't been keeping up with the Trek though. The timing's interesting. I Discovery season 3 just ended. I'll say I was basically whelmed by it.
That's fair. Yeah.
But there's a lot of beats similar to the Buck Rogers plotline, getting thrust 800 years in the future. You got the Federation,
right,
like in this weird bubble, which is kind of like your new Chicago.
Right.
You don't have Draconians, you have Orions, and they even use the same tactic to get into the Federation headquarters.
That's true.
They do with Buck to get into New Chicago. So in some ways, I was, just finishing it up. And I was like, this actually does kind of, the accents are very different. They get to the sense of isolation, not just Buck, it's this crew. But I was like, maybe that is sort of how this plays in the modern day.
Right. That's, you're not wrong. Yeah.
There's the whole thing about stories repeating themselves. And I don't know, we're even now talking about a story that was already sort of 40 years old. I don't know how much this resembled the original Buck Rogers, but these things resonate. I'm just trying to sound like I know what I'm talking about when you're talking about a show I haven't seen yet.
Right. Yeah, I think Flash Gordon probably stuck a little more to its serial roots and then distracted you with all that Queen, of course.
Dino De Laurentiis, right? I mean, it was just anything Dino De Laurentiis made is sort of like it's anachronistic, but at the same time it hits so hard that you just love it anyway. I just finished reading Dune actually for the first time, and now I have the movie queued up for some De Laurentiis, and David Lynch changing his name to what is the director's name when you don't want to be part of Alan Smithy?
Alan Smithy.
Yeah.
I saw that for the first time last year, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. The editing was a complete and total hack job, but it was really fun to watch.
Well, the thing is,
Harkonnen is having so much fun in that film.
But the thing is, I mean, no matter what you think of Dune, by making that movie, they gave him the money to make Blue Velvet. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
that's a win if nothing else.
Yeah.
And it's a weird movie that probably just wouldn't exist otherwise. So I think it has the right to exist.
Yeah,
Sure.
on this
Yeah.
podcast, we talked about there'd be a lot of trouble remaking Flash Gordon now. I think I even saw a news article a few days ago where someone on streaming was like putting a disclaimer because of Ming the Merciless being like potentially offensive. So there's a lot of hurdles
God.
there.
Oh,
Buck
yeah.
Rogers seems like you could probably get away with making rebooting this one without too much trouble.
I think
I would hope.
anything.
Yeah. Oh, no, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. You go ahead.
I would honestly hope so. I mean, I think that this is a story that is really ripe for a reboot. But that said, I don't want to see the fun taken out of it too. Like all the things that I think are missing from the 1979 version of Buck, which is to have a little more grounded realism with the character, a little more exploration of what honestly is going on with his acclimation to this new world. I think that's all interesting, valuable stuff to explore if somebody were to take this on and write a new version of it. But at the same time, like I don't need the dark, gritty reboot of Buck Rogers. Like I don't need it to be super serious about itself. I don't need to have another like franchise universe built out of it. That's sort of the fun thing was watching this movie and then watching a little bit of the series again before doing this tonight. Um, I feel so unburdened by this show. Like there's not I don't hear the voices of 50,000 fanboys telling me what's canon and what's not. And, this is a plot hole and that's play. It doesn't matter. It's full of plot holes and it's great, just like, let this be fun. That's how I want to think about Buck. And that's how I would want to think of it in a revived version as well. I was doing a series of James Bond podcasts, and we also did The Man from U.N.C.L.E. when that came out in 2015. And I was a big fan of the original TV show. And I was saying, like, you have to remember that in 1964, so we already had Dr. No from Russia with Love and Goldfinger by the time U.N.C.L.E. hit TV. And as that show got sillier, a lot of people started to think, oh, well, U.N.C.L.E. is the parody version of James Bond. And like, no, that's not exactly the right framing. It is a lighter alternative to James Bond. And that's what I would like to see out of a new Buck Rogers. Like, make it the lighter alternative to the incredibly heavy, incredibly sort of shows and franchises that are almost dragged down by the weight of their canons, their histories, their expectations. I don't need that out of every bit of pop culture that I consume. So I'd like to see somebody be able to take it and run with it in that direction.
I mean, this will probably sound cynical, but as long as studio types still think there's money in Guardians of the Galaxy ripoffs, then I could absolutely see them just applying that formula.
Yeah.
It worked perfectly.
Yeah.
And we're going to see movies and TV,
Yeah.
I think, produced very differently in the next few years. So, the landscape's going to change. And who knows, maybe the super dark show in a few years will seem like a weird anachronism and be the perfect time for that sort of revisiting. But I guess the thing is, it's a nice Joseph Campbell tale. It tends to hold up wherever you put it. So
yeah, it's the hero's journey. Or anyway, it does say on Wikipedia that on December 10th of 2020, a TV series is in development with Brian K. Vaughan writing. So take that however you will.
I feel like there have been a lot of attempted reboots and announcements, and for a decade or more. And
Yeah.
and I hope when it happens, look, I would love to see a reboot of Logan's Run. I have in my head the way that should go, but nobody's asked me.
That's been in
No,
develop.
I've yeah. When I found out the difference between the book and the movie, I haven't read the book yet, but I was like, oh no,
Oh, I
make that immediately.
Yeah.
Like,
the books are wild. Yeah.
They can do that. I mean, I love the original movie, but that could definitely sit beside it, since the second half would be completely different.
Yeah.
I think we're wrapping up for too long, but I just needed to yell out "buck foo" if nothing else.
Second, he said when he killed Tiger Man, he was like bottoms up.
Yeah,
like
just it's like, we got Star Trek, we got Kirk Fu here, and Gil has his own particular style, and you get to say Buck Fu, which is better. So
yeah, yeah, that was super fun.
Yes,
I think I heard Tiger Man comes back for the rest of the series, even though he died in the movie or something.
Yes, yeah, they do resurrect him. Yeah,
yeah, he was cool.
Yeah.
That was my shout out. Does anyone have any other major points they want to throw out on this particular movie?
I think he hit the major points. I mean, it's just it's fun from beginning to end. It was cool to kind of watch the feature again in comparison to the way it aired on TV. Got to say, the Kino Blu-rays are great. They look fantastic. I think the features are a little lacking. There are some commentaries. I don't think they're, at least not all of them, are totally worthwhile. But overall, it's really solid. So if anybody has just been watching this on old DVDs or on streaming, the Blu-rays are a worthy upgrade. So yeah,
well, that is us in this case, but
right.
But yeah, I at least had a look. I live in Japan, so sometimes it's a little hard to come by those. But
sure, yeah.
I mean, I can't. Do you know my Blu-ray player broke last month, and trying to buy a Blu-ray player is basically impossible now. I can't imagine. I went to Walmart, and they're in the corner, and there are 3 of them, and they're covered in dust. It's just
wow.
Yeah, it's
that's
weird.
where we are.
So,
interesting. I'm still.
So I'd imagine. Yeah, you probably have to buy stuff online if it's physical media.
Yeah.
John, for those that don't know, can you tell the listeners a bit about what you do with your Star Trek podcasting and mission log?
Yeah. I mean, so I do a number of shows for Roddenberry. So go to podcasts.roddenberry.com, and Mission Log is sort of the flagship show. We started that in 2012 with the mission of every week examining a single episode of Star Trek and doing it roughly in series order, not in strict chronological order, but in a series order, starting with TOS. And we're now coming in close on the end of DS9, so probably like another year to go with that. We also do a live show that is concurrent with any new Star Trek that's on the air. And 2020 was a big year for new Star Trek, and there will be a lot more new Star Trek coming, so that's cool. Also producing the Trek Files with Larry Nemeczek, producing Sci-Fi 5, which is our newest show, a daily 5-minute sci-fi history podcast. So go download them all. They're all great. I promise.
And I am a listener of several of those. So, Mark, you have
I've scored a film called. Oh,
you go ahead.
Yes, same. I've scored a film called Snowblind. You can follow it on Instagram, Snowblind Film, I believe. Just search for Snowblind. It'll be dropping in 2021. You can find my music at Stunrunner Music at Twitter. Sorry, I just made that, so I have to remember that. And when you listen to this in the future, there'll be music there, I promise.
Okay.
Also, Stunrunner at bandcamp.com.
Okay, and
this podcast a whole bunch apparently.
Okay. That's enough plugging. I'll shut up for the day. But yeah,
no,
I know.
You plug. you just don't want to have to remember the letters.
That's right. You're actually correct. I might plug it in later. Okay, I'll do it.
Nice.
MLSFS pod at Twitter, Facebook. I just can't. I can't
Very
spell.
good.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, it's an acronym. It's not a word, so
yeah, exactly.
It's not spelling.
Well,
it's
memorization. I guess, Mark, you want to send people out of the sanctuary today?
Okay. beady, 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 beady. Get out of here.
Sounds good. Okay, but
Fantastic.
all right.
That was awesome.
That was great.
Sorry for a little weirdness on the cast list today, but John, thank you very much for having a
Love
chat
it,
about
man.
Buck. So
Hey,
Yeah,
thank you. I was so happy to do that, and I'm gonna go watch more of those Blu-rays tonight when I have a chance.
oh yeah.
and I tried to
It's
throw
nice
my
to-
discovery thoughts to you now because I'll be wiping tables and vacuuming floors when you're on tomorrow.
Oh man, yeah,
Mm.
that's rough. Yeah, and I feel a little weird because tomorrow night we've got Noah Averbach Katz, who played Ren on the show, coming as a guest, which is cool to have somebody from the show when we do our discussion of the final episode. Obviously, couldn't have him on in the middle of the run, but I was whelmed by the finale. I loved the season overall, but I really didn't care too much for the finale. So I don't know how that discussion is going to go. Hopefully, because it's live, we just kind of let the listeners run with it. And I think I might just write up like a short paragraph that has a summary of my thoughts and then just kind of leave it and be done with it.
Well, Ren left before the finale, so
he certainly did. Yeah.
yeah.
So, all right, guys.
Y'all have a
This
good
was
evening.
a pleasure. Thank you
Nice
so
to meet you. It
much.
was super fun.
Good to meet you. Yeah, thank you for doing this on short notice.
My pleasure.
Matt, I'll send you the recording on my end in case you need that.
Okay,
isolated
thank
audio.
you very much then.
Yep.
Okay,
And
talk to
I
y'all
will
later.
send you mine.
Okay,
Take care,
bye-bye.
gentlemen.
Well,
Bye.
take care. Have a good night and day.
Too.
Yes.